fooled myself into thinking that I was fine, but as time went on, I found myself slowly sinking into a deep depression. I tried to brush it off and act like nothing was wrong. I chose to ignore the darkness that was worming its way into my life. I continued on doing the things that I thought that I would normally do, but I couldn't find any joy or meaning in those things anymore. I didn't have any semblance of a relationship with God, and I blamed Him for a lot of things. I felt alone and useless, and I chose to take that out on God. But what I realize now is that God will love you no matter what the circumstances may be. The summer of 2015, we started to go to church again. By then, I had fallen so far into my depression that even getting up in the morning was a struggle. But I still chose to pretend that I was okay. I chose to put on a mask so that people wouldn't see the real me, so to speak. What I didn't know was that God could see right through the mask that I had made to hide myself from the world. He saw the hurt, the loneliness, the worthlessness I felt. He could see it all, and He tried reaching out to help me. But I rejected His help. The enemy had planted so many awful thoughts in my mind that when God tried to help me, I refused His help because I thought that I didn't deserve it. All throughout the rest of that year, I sunk further and further into depression. I had no self-worth or confidence in myself. I completely believed the lies that the enemy was feeding me. The spring of 2016, I was so far into the depression that on February 15th, I started self-harming. I didn't understand it. I hadn't even heard of it before. I remember feeling so ashamed of myself for doing something like that. I also remember hearing this voice saying that I deserved the pain and that I should be ashamed of how weak I was. But now I know that the voice that was beating me down was the voice of the enemy. Satan will do anything he can to keep you from having a relationship with God and fulfilling your purpose. At the time, I had no idea that the enemy was attacking me. I just assumed it was my weakness that caused everything to happen. I promised myself that I would never hurt myself again after that day. That was most likely the biggest lie that I've ever told myself, because I knew that I wasn't going to keep that promise. That promise wasn't kept. That one time turned into two, which then turned into three, until it turned into a full-blown addiction that would affect me for the next 3 years. But the summer of that year, I was so consumed by my addiction that I started to seclude myself from my friends and family. I stopped doing the things I used to enjoy because of the fear of people finding out about the self-harm. I continued wearing a mask to hide the pain I felt, and I still pretended to be happy, even though on the inside, I was slowly breaking. That summer, I tried to commit suicide for the first time. Satan used that as a way to beat me down, and I hated God for letting me live. Now I thank Him for never giving up on me and for loving me even when I hated Him. For the rest of that year, I was consumed by the depression, and my addiction controlled my every move. The nameless voice that would beat me down became my own, and I gave up. In March of 2017, I went on my first youth conference. I went into that conference angry at God and lost. It was like a black cloud was blocking my vision. On that conference, a ray of light broke through the darkness, and all I could feel was love. I had gotten a taste of God, and boy, did I want more. During that conference, I let go of the hate I had towards God, and I found hope in Jesus. I came back from that conference on fire for God, and I felt like a totally new person. I had stopped self-harming, and I had a renewed sense of self-worth, and some of the confidence that I had lost came back. I was 2 months clean when I heard the voice again. I chose to ignore it. Then as time wore on, the voice became more persistent, and it started to become harder to just ignore it. Until one day I gave in and I started listening to the things being said to me. That's when I started to doubt God, and Satan used that doubt to worm his way back into my life. If you give Satan an inch, he'll take a mile. I started to believe what the enemy said, and that led to me relapsing, and the confidence and self-worth I had slowly built back up crumbled. But I didn't blame God like I used to, because of all the love and kindness He had shown me. So instead, I chose to blame myself. I put the mask back on, and I didn't let anyone get too close to me. I wasn't completely closed off, but I didn't let anyone see the pain either. I never asked for help because Satan had convinced me that I didn't deserve it. I became lost in my addiction again, and the depression hit me harder than ever. And as a result, the suicidal thoughts came back, and by the end of that year, I had completely given up the hope I had found. I didn't have any plans for the future. I couldn't find any joy in anything. I just felt empty. The spring of 2018, I was so consumed by the lies of the enemy, and I couldn't bring myself to care about anything. So when the voice said that I'll be better off dead, I believed it. That led to me trying to commit suicide for the second time. I remember waking up in my bed wondering why God wouldn't just let me die. And then God's love came rushing in, and for the first time I asked for help. I broke down, and God poured his love into me, and something changed in me that day. I didn't feel as empty or alone. I wasn't completely better, but I made the decision to seek help and begin recovery. I started having meetings with Josh, and I was intentionally seeking God's love. During one of my meetings, Josh had me write something on a sticky note. You don't get better naturally, you get better intentionally. And that has really stuck with me. I've learned that you'll never get better if you just sit idly by. You have to be intentional and seek help and guidance. I've learned a lot over the past year, and I've realized that I'm not defined by my scars or past mistakes. They don't hold any power over me anymore. Matthew 10:31 is a verse that's really helped me through a lot. When I struggle with my worth, I read that verse and I'm reminded of how much I'm worth to God. I've had some setbacks lately, and I was in a pretty dark place, but God has put people in my life to help me and guide me back to the truth. I'm not going to lie and say that I have everything figured out, because I don't. I still make mistakes, I still stray from the truth, and I still have setbacks. But that's okay, because I have a God who still loves me even when I make mistakes. Lately, I've been so caught up in my mistakes that Satan handed me a label. I put it on fully believing that the label Satan had convinced me to put on was who I am. It's like I've been wearing a name tag that says worthless on it. I truly believed that's what my identity was. But now I'm taking off the labels that Satan has convinced me to put on, and I'm putting on God's truth. Satan may say I'm worthless, but the truth is I'm valuable. He might try to convince me into thinking I'm alone, but the truth is I'm never alone. Satan tells me I'm useless, but God says he has a plan for me. Even if I fall 1,000 times, I'm going to get back up every single time. And I'm not going to let Satan label me anymore, because I'm a child of God.
Oh, and I just want you, 'cause nothing else, oh, nothing else, oh, nothing else will do. Oh, and I just want